So let's recap. On WrestleMania week, the easiest PR week possible, WWE sent out Nick Khan to do an embarrassing interview with Bill Simmons, where he ended up calling the WWE the underdogs when he was asked about AEW, and spent most of his time talking about AEW, calling him the billionaire's kid and all this other shit, disrespectful shit to Tony, which him and Nick, they've got their own thing or whatever, which is fine.
Yeah.
But they're clearly taking the playbook from how Vince only used to address Ted Turner and not Eric Bischoff. It's the same thing. They had Triple H do an interview full of softball questions with Peter Rosenberg, where he just complained about his people being critical of his booking, talk shit, and buried his own roster for being out of shape and basically not committed to the cause. And then he was praising Donald Trump in this thing. So that was a whole nother thing there. Then
he talk about how he was a heel.
Yes. Like he thinks it's a fucking game out here.
Yeah, like he's getting heat. What?
So they do that, and then I wake up Wednesday morning, and Roman Reigns decides to be in the Vanity Fair magazine wearing all this stuff that is clearly not aimed at men. So I'm not going to judge him for this, but it looked ridiculous regardless. Maybe maybe it wasn't.
It was. I think it may have been aimed at some men.
Maybe. So this man like just coyly and slyly admits being a Trump supporter in the middle of this thing. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you like why do this? Like, you're about to main event this show in a couple of days. Your fan base, your biggest, most hardcore fan base, and we're friends with one of them, right? Are black women who will ride or die for Roman Reigns in the time where niggas was kicking the shit out of him, that he deserved it. They was with him, you know, and this whole thing with Reigns, and it was just like, bro, why would you do this? Like, I was fascinated when he did this. Like, I was fascinated. He used all the code and everything. And then I thought about, I was like, Florida. He think
people don't know what that means when people say that shit.
I was like, Florida football player, all these institutions, you know. And then that same day, there was like some presentation like from like some Samoan legacy, some foundation thing that literally went to the White House, and they gave Donald Trump a ulafala. So whether it was related or not, it looked like it was all related. So it was just terrible timing. All the Roman Reigns fans had to fucking eat it, and I laughed my head off at all this shit. Like, just the gymnastics people were doing to try to defend this. And then some people said, fuck it, fuck them all together, which also, you know, was on the other side of that.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine shooting yourself in the foot that much, because people would be like, well, what's the difference with, you know, we know Triple H is a Trump supporter, Chris Jericho is a Trump supporter. It's like, it hits differently when we already know who you are, right? We already know who you are. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. That's your steez. But when we first find out,
there's also other layers to it. It's like he's the guy with leukemia who like was literally wore a mask and crap inside of, like, when he went to have matches that went like into the crowd during the pandemic stuff. He was a guy that got away, that didn't show up during the pandemic, right? All this stuff. It seemed that like he like leaned a certain way that fit with, like, for example, his family, and then, or like his nuclear family, and then ultimately, like, he's undoing all that, and it's like, oh man. And also, it's like the whole, like, you know, he wants to dabble in Hollywood. Yeah. He wants to go the Rock, John Cena route.
Good luck.
None of this stuff is conducive towards him saying any of this stuff is conducive towards doing it. Like, he's completely hustling backwards. For like, it's your most hardcore fan base, and it's your future trajectory of what you want to do after the pro wrestling stuff. How you done throwing your head around at the ground for play? It's like, what are you doing? It's just a massive misplay. It's just wow. And it's like, all right, man. All right. Just remember, like, all the jokes we've heard about Samoans and this and the third is like, all right. okay, y'all say all this about X, Y, and Z. All right, well, they showed you.
You know,
They showed you.
allegedly,
They
this is
showed
a
you.
black man. You know, this is how he was treated. You know,
They were saying all that stuff. Like black, there were, a lot of his biggest supporters that were black were like, he's getting mistreated because of racism and all this kind of stuff. And they, these white crowds ain't taking to him just because because he's a person of color. And it's like, maybe, look, I'm sure there is some truth to that, or was some truth to that at the time. I also want to point out, I don't give a fuck about y'all. And y'all thought he did. And y'all thought that his wife or the lady in his life that he had them kids with, you thought he cared about y'all. You were wrong.
he cares about her.
And when it gets to these relationships and stuff, and people always be like, "Hey man, just because they fucking somebody that look like y'all don't mean they give a fuck about y'all." It's always you don't know that. You're just assuming that. And there you go.
Then
another example.
An $850 belt celebrating the career Triple H was put on sale. Some people calling it the Third Reich tribute replica belt. It was being sold for $800.
Is an Iron Cross on the belt?
There are several Iron Crosses on the belt.
Multiple. Damn.
And this coupled with the fact that Triple H went 67 minutes at the Hall of Fame speech. Like, I wrote a tweet and I was like, man, Marilyn Manson at least had the dignity to get his ribs removed before he sucked his own dick. Like, it was just like the amount of just self-fellatio for Paul Levesque this week was it was really incredible. Combining that with WrestleMania and then the big timing near Bret Hart and Austin with not playing their music and his playing his and coming out multiple times at WrestleMania. And it's just like, you want all this credit, huh? But you're scrambling, at other times, which we'll get to later. The Street Profits. Man, I felt bad for these guys. They got sent to Cameron and Mace. It Is What It Is podcast.
They got sent on the shitless podcasting circuit.
They got sent out there on a suicide mission. Clearly not researched of who Cameron is and how much he does not give a fuck. It's like we've seen Cameron get Bill O'Reilly shook up on national television before. Like a man who was on television his entire life being an asshole to people, whatever. So they send the Street Profits to promote WrestleMania SmackDown in WrestleMania. They're on the Friday show. Obviously, they're not on the Saturday show. Eventually, Cameron, under the guise of being Macho Man Randy Savage or whatever, basically asked them, why are y'all not on WrestleMania? Y'all the Street Profits? What street? And then from there, the Street Profits have to go into gimmick to try to save this and get it back on the road. And Cam's like,
so what did they do, Rich?
I'll tell you in a second. Cam's like, ain't nobody in the WWE better than everybody in the WWF, the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, Demolition. And then they started nigging it up after that. They was just like, we better than all that. And then they basically go into the promo voices and all that shit, trying to just keep it in gear somewhat. And then Angelo Dawkins is just like a guy I've talked to in real life before. Cool guy, nice guy. He just like, I'm going to keep it a stack. Which he just cracked flats and miss it. I don't want to be on the bench. And this is right after Nick Khan was saying, we don't bench people to Bill Simmons.
People.
Nick Khan had a fucking lie-a-thon on Bill Simmons shit. I think anytime that he goes on Bill Simmons from now on, we need to make that a part of our listening for that week, because he's going to go insane with the lies. But Dawkins basically says, yeah, man, I would be, I obviously I want to be in, but we got to play our role. We on the bench or whatever, but Friday we gonna defend the titles and we gonna hold it down, whatever. He tries to spin it, but they clearly sent them to this outlet because they were black. We know that. And then why weren't they on the show? I'm not gonna say it, but you could have probably used them on night one for sure. Looking at what was on night one,
could have used a party match on night one.
Just saying. So there was that. I saw that and I was just, this is secondhand embarrassment. And once they had to explain what their gimmick is, we prophets of the street, and it was oh, a white man came up with this. Oh, okay, I got you.
It was like, hey, what street she from? And he's like, and then they basically did the whole WWE this is, to a normal person, if you explain this, they'd be like, this is nonsense. So they have to say it's a mentality, right? So it's like, yeah, it's a grind. It's a mentality. I was like, all right, bro, all right, get out of here, get it out of here. Like it just don't. When you have these people have to like keep up kayfabe or keep up what they're doing in front of like people that don't give a fuck about that, it makes them look silly as hell. And it's not back in the day where you can have people who just slap people to be like whatever. Like no, can't do that no more. So you just sound silly. You look ridiculous.
What street? That is an all timer.
Yep.
Then it was revealed by Brandon Thurston that Vince McMahon still owns tons of TKO stock, maybe like around $8 or $1 billion of TKO stock or whatever. They say he's not linked to the day-to-day operations of the company. But who am I to trust these liars? Why would I believe them? He's still benefiting off of all this shit. So, what are we doing? The big secret, the bad man is gone, but the bad man's still getting paid off all this. The bad man's still ranking it in,
Yeah.
And this is not directly related to WWE, but since she was on LFG, Mickie James, oh my God, was wrestling Maki Ito at the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show. And apparently has gotten so blown up in the beginning of it, she decides she's going to grab the mic and say just something absolutely ridiculous. Like she just an all-time crash out where she's like, all the boys and girls are in the back, trying to get their 5-star notice for Meltzer or whatever. And you audibly hear somebody say, "What's that?" like in the crowd. It's amazing. And then she was like, he ain't never put me over. He ain't going to push you over because I don't wrestle. I entertain. And like she like does this pose with it. She does this pose with it. I watched the video like 10 times in a row. This is what, like, when I hear these like wrestlers, right? Like these vets and legends, quote unquote legends, like stuff like this proves why they command no respect. None. Like she stopped her pro wrestling match to yell at Dave Meltzer in the middle of it, right? This is everything. Like when people talk about exposing the business, this is fake shitting on the business. This is all of it right here. The vets that y'all love, the people that you have these memories for, they don't give a fuck about none of that shit. Like, there is no business. It's get money.
So,
like,
there's also this part, right? Normally, when I'm blown up, I don't grab a mic and start talking. It hurts me getting my win back. It's like, what are we doing? For who? For what? Trying to buy time?
So there was like, and I maybe
run out on the floor.
Like that's everything I had written down, but all these things kept hitting just a couple hours after. It would just be one more look for WWE, and on top of all this, it was like the overhang of like, oh my God, are they going to have Donald Trump show up to WrestleMania? Now that didn't end up happening, but it hung with them. This felt like their marketing scheme for the week to try to get some attention on themselves because the storylines weren't going to do it. There was no real exciting energy around this because everything's weird because it's on Easter. Like, so like it's already a week later. It felt weird watching WrestleMania.
It's on late. Easter and it's the same weekend as NBA playoffs starting.
Yeah. So it says she stopped to do a singing battle with Maki. It seemed like a planned thing at the time. So like I don't doubt that as far as the singing battle, but what did Dave Meltzer have to do with that?
Right.
So it's like Triple H, 67 minutes, mentions Vince in the speech, crowd pops, cheers. Get ready. It's going to happen one day. And everything around this is just like, I can't believe this company is like, this was reverse Legento activity all week. We need to demote Legento back to running this shit, like to keep this, like, and this is a hard pivot, right? A lot of people were saying, for that, and it may be, right? But still, why take the focus off of the wrestling? I don't know. I guess they feel like they can't market to the public in a general way, so they just use the most controversial figure to try to tie themselves next to it.
I don't know, man. It's all just so dumb this week. All so dumb this week. Like, it's supposed to be a celebration, excitement for all the stuff, and like the things they did were just like nothing but distractions away from that shit. And it was like is Kanye in charge of their marketing? It was just crash out publicity. Like, I don't think it helped them. I don't think any of this generated them the buzz they wanted or thought they could get from it. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah, CM Punk had an interview as well where he he did not mention Trump.
He basically said, he basically is like, I still work with fucking children. To this day, I still work with children. I'm just at a different place, but I still work with children.
Yeah, he basically told people like, you know that meme like where people say, society is messed up, but yet you participate in society. Like he did one of those.
Yeah.
Like where it's like, but y'all using Twitter.
I was talking about the one where I was talking about the part where he's talking about like, yeah, the political views, whatever else. He's like, keep that kind of like. He's like, I kind of keep some of that shit to myself, or whatever. But yeah, he did mention the part about like, what do you want me to do about it? I was like, I mean, all right, buddy.
Look,
I guess you are picking and choosing again. I guess you don't want to take a stand no more.
Yeah, he's on a different kind of countdown, and I think everybody knows what it is. Saudi Mania, or Saudi Royal Rumble. They gonna get you, Phil. They gonna get you, Phil. They gonna get you. You remember what that KRS-One song, "Love's Gonna Get You"? Oh yeah, they gonna get you. But
all right, time to get to the shitty show.
Let's